The landing shook twice, once in the wing and once in my stomach. 5 in the afternoon, the glass corridor of the airport sweaty inside. The tired air conditioning blowing the smell of stale coffee. I dragged my suitcase with a check-in sticker, tied my hair with the elastic band on my wrist, and typed in the family group, "My flight arrives at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up?" I sent it with a blue heart, like someone holding the door with their foot and trying not to look like a burden. The reply came before the notification sound finished dying. "Use Uber. We're not your driver." Giggles, a thumbs up, the rounded silence of someone who thinks they've told a good joke. I wanted to delete the message, but I did. What disappears becomes doubt. What remains becomes proof. I stood near door A watching the reunions. A sign reading, "Welcome, Mum." A purple bouquet. A child throwing herself into her father's lap. A man held an open umbrella inside the lobby, as if protecting his love from splashes. I had no sign, no flower, no lap. I adjusted the strap of my backpack on my shoulder and pretended to window shop. In the reflection of the glass, I saw my own face, knowing it would leave alone. At 5:13 p.m. my mother typed, "We'll talk later," deleted it and sent, "Take care, daughter." No period. At 5:19 p.m. my sister-in-law posted a selfie with a glitter filter. "Friday is sacred," 3 gold hearts. I felt the sun from the track shine through the glass and hit my face. I remembered being 19, the night I slept on the metal bench because no one saw the message. I remembered my uncle asking if my hair warned me of the rain. I laughed inwardly, dryly, like someone who recognizes the soundtrack of their own humiliation. I hailed the car at 5:46 p.m. The app made a happy little noise, as if finding transportation was always a reason to celebrate. I leaned against the column, counted the passing signs, and imagined the scene from above. Me, a stationary dot between arrows that didn't point to me. The driver arrived at 5:49 p.m. His cap light, radio low, hands like someone driving slowly to save tires. He opened the trunk carefully and placed my suitcase inside as if he knew it was wearing out. We got in. He checked my name, I confirmed his, and for a minute there was only the sound of the cold air fighting with my body heat. "Are you part of Dona Celeste's family?" he asked in the rearview mirror, in a tone like someone commenting on the traffic. Earlier today I picked up my other daughter at the same terminal. She asked me to put it on her mother's account. "Do you want to do that too?" Another daughter. Mother's bill. The sentence fell into my mouth like puddle water. Cold, dirty, inevitable. I saw the messages on the screen like illuminated signs. "We are not your driver. Friday is sacred." And someone earlier was picked up. Or rather, they didn't even need to be. They sent the car, sent the bill, sent the receipt to the same mother who tells me to take care without a period. I took a deep breath and replied, "You can leave it on my card." He nodded, turned towards the boarding exit and said with a wisdom that didn't apply to me, "Family is like that, one seeks, the other doesn't." The city flowed past the glass. A workshop, a church, a pharmacy, a skinny dog crossing without looking. Between one traffic light and the next, my mind organized the scene like a spreadsheet. I took a screenshot of my brother's response, saved the time of the order, and captured the route map. I gave them names in my mind. Arrival _5 p.m. Response answer brother. Uber's receipt. It's not a habit. It's a defense. When the world turns you into an exaggeration, each piece of data is a stepping stone to keep you from slipping. As we crossed the bridge, the wind blew through the car, lifting the hairs on my neck. The radio played old cheesy music, talking about someone waiting at the station. I was no longer waiting. I looked at my hands in my lap, crossed lines, short nails. I thought about everything I pay for in silence. Tests, medicine, the weekly grocery shopping that missed a bit. Me, the daughter who solves the problem. In the group, the one who gets by. I arrived at the building with the late afternoon light beating askew on the facades. I took the elevator, listening to my heart, which was louder than the engine. I opened the door, left my bag leaning against it, and didn't turn on the lights. The house smelled like the dry cloth we wipe when we don't want to see dust. I sat on the floor, back against the bed, my phone in hand. I scrolled through the conversation. My message, the reply, the stickers, the take care. I scrolled further and found a photo of my sister-in-law. Arrival. 3 golden hearts, like the balloons at parties where they always speak of togetherness. I opened a notebook. I wrote, "Arrivals." Below, line by line. 5 p.m. message. 5:07 p.m. response. 5:46 p.m. Uber requested. 5:49 p.m. boarding. Driver's comment. Sister-in-law's selfie. I saved it. The rain started outside, the first downpour of the day, heavy, fast, loud. I closed my eyes and let the sound sink in. Everything they'd asked of me for years fit into that noise. Patience, understanding, grace. But something had changed as I stood waiting in the lobby. I no longer wanted to be the person who understood. I wanted to be the person who took notes. I stood up, removed the elastic band from my hair, and let my hair fall over my shoulder. In the hallway mirror, my tired face stared back at me. It wasn't pretty nor heroic. It was real. I scrawled a word on the bottom of the glass with faded lipstick, just for myself. I've arrived. Not for them. For me. The rain thinned, turning into a noise. My phone vibrated with a faded notification in the group. A small gray square. Message deleted. Before it disappeared, I saw the short, imperfect preview, enough to light up an old place. The name of a group that wasn't mine. My skin crawled. I saved the screenshot. My heart stopped for a second, as if counting to 3 before starting again. I didn't know where that door led, but I recognized the handle. I took a deep breath and closed the curtains. The night descended with the weight of someone with something hidden away. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. Felt ready. On Saturday, the sun came out too early, invading the room with that stubborn brightness that doesn't respect curtains. I made coffee, but it tasted bitter even with sugar. I sat at the table and watched the steam rise from the cup. A slow, silent dance, similar to the thoughts I was trying to hide from myself. My phone blinked on the tablecloth. The family group was still active, but without my name. Photos of breakfast on the beach, sun emojis, golden hearts. It seemed like the whole world had continued as normal, except for me. I opened my laptop and tried to get some work done. Presentations, numbers, goals. The kind of order that always saved me when emotions threatened to overwhelm everything. At the office, I was the efficient consultant, the one who gets things done. At home, I was just the one who gets things done. But there, in front of the screen, the phrase "use Uber" still echoed like a soft but repeated slap. A reminder disguised as a joke. You are on your own. The deleted messages from the night before continued to bother me. The preview I'd seen, a group name perhaps, hung me like a mosquito in the dark. Something told me this wasn't the first time someone had mentioned me elsewhere. And that, perhaps, I'd never really belonged there. I picked up my phone and started scrolling through the conversation with my mother. It had everything. Deposit slips for tests. God bless you messages, long audio clips about soap operas and recipes. But amidst the routine there was always an absence. No questions about me, how I was, how I felt. I was the daughter who didn't cause any trouble. And for that very reason, the one no one looked for. At 11 in the morning, the notification sound broke the silence. It was cousin Denise, the most sensitive, the one who never laughed when others made jokes about my hair or skin. "Friend, I need to tell you something," she wrote. I waited. The next bubble appeared quickly. They have another group. I stared at the screen. Another group. The 2 words hung heavy in the air. She sent the screenshot. The name in bold. Family without drama. The icon is a subtle white flower. At the top, the pinned message was from weeks ago. Guys, let's keep it light, okay? It's all joy here. I scrolled through the screenshot. There were comments about me. Airport princess must be arriving looking grumpy. She'd better take an Uber anyway, who told her to be independent. She's chic, she likes to do things differently. And what hurt the most? She has a habit of seeing racism in everything. Laughter, hearts, stickers. Their lightness was my wound. I didn't cry. I just felt my stomach turn and my entire body go still. The feeling was old, familiar. The same as when I was a child and heard that my doll wasn't pretty like the ones in the store. The same as when, at school, the teacher mistook me for the cleaning lady. It was the same silence that always followed, the shame of reacting. But this time, instead of keeping quiet, I opened my phone's notepad and created a new folder. Drama-Free Family, Records. I saved the screenshot. I named the file with the time and date. I did it with almost professional precision, like someone filing evidence in a trial. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was just the instinct of someone who learned that evidence saves. Shortly after, Mom called me. "Daughter, your brother said you were upset with the group." It was just a joke. Was it he who said that? Yes, but you know how it is. You both have strong personalities. I took a deep breath. Mom, it's not personality. It's a pattern. Silence. Daughter, don't start. Let's focus on your grandmother's party, okay? He wants you to help with the video. Of course, I replied. I'll help. I hung up and stared at the wall, the clock, anything that wasn't the weight of the phrase, "Let's keep it light." Light for whom? I opened the window. Outside, the day was beautiful, the kind of sky the family always uses for the blessed caption. I saw the same blue, but I felt nothing. That I picked up my phone again. I scrolled to the top of the Drama-Free Family group. The cover photo was of a barbecue I hadn't been to. Everyone was smiling. My empty chair was in the background. I saved the image, closed my phone, and, almost automatically, I opened YouTube. I searched for editing videos, tutorials, formats, soundtracks. If they wanted lightness, I would give them an accurate representation of what they called lightness. As the sun set and shadows began to fall across the living room floor, I wrote on paper what would become the beginning of the video script. 80 years of love, faith, and unity, full version. And for the first time since landing, I felt something resembling peace. Not the peace of the innocent. The peace of those who chose to wait in silence, until the right moment to press play. That night, I sat at my computer like someone staring into a mirror that finally tells the truth. I opened the Drama-Free Family group again. It wasn't curiosity, it was an autopsy. I needed to see the full extent of the carelessness, understand where each blow had landed. I scrolled to the beginning of the conversation, months before my arrival. There they were. My brother, my sister-in-law, 2 cousins, and even my mother with their usual amens, punctuating conversations that never included me. The first comment that stopped me was a quote from my brother, dated March. "Clara's good with money, right? She always finds a way. It's a shame she lacks a bit of lightness." The sister-in-law responded with a laughing emoji and another sentence. "It's the hair, love. It feels like it's carrying the weight of the world." The answers came in sequence. "She should relax more. She takes everything too seriously." Laughter. Yellow skin color on the stickers, never mine. I left my hands still on the keyboard, listening to the computer whir, the low click of the wall clock. For a second, I felt the urge to respond, to defend myself, to scream inside how these sentences, even spoken with laughter, slowly corrode. But I didn't write anything. Captured everything. Screenshot by screenshot. Every hour, every date, every name. As I saved the files, I remembered how they describe me when they need me. The smart one, the responsible daughter, the one who helps her mother. And when they don't, the difficult one, the exaggerated one, the one who sees problems where there are none. This duality has haunted me my entire life, like a polite shadow. The praise always came with an invisible chain tied to my foot. I went to the kitchen and looked at myself in the microwave's reflection. My tired face, my hair tied in a high bun, my worn t-shirt. That's how they imagined me. Useful, collected, available. But something inside me began to stir, like a blade slowly emerging from its sheath. I no longer wanted to be the proof that I could handle anything. I went back to the room, opened a new folder on the computer. I named it, Inventory of Silences. There I saved the screenshots, the audio, the photos from parties where I never appeared, or where they appeared cropped, blurred like an accidental detail. I grabbed the flash drive from the drawer, the same one I used for work presentations, and formatted it. That's where the video of my grandmother's 80th birthday party would begin. A gift, they said. Little did they know what kind of gift it would be. While transferring the files, I received a message from my mother. "Daughter, send me some pretty pictures of yourself so I can include them in the video. The one you have on LinkedIn is very serious." She smiled humorlessly. "Pretty? Serious?" The word pretty in her mouth always had an owner. My sister-in-law. Fair skin, easy laugh, the kind of woman who fits into any frame. I searched for photos of myself and realized there were almost none. Always behind the camera, never in front. At family events, I was the arm holding the glass, the reflection in the mirror, the shadow cast on the wall. I chose one old, unfiltered, natural hair, straight eyes. I sent it to her. "Is this one good?" It took a few minutes, and the answer came. "It's beautiful, daughter. But maybe one with less expression, you know? To match the rest." Closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. I didn't respond. I just saved the screenshot and filed it in inventory. Later, my cousin Denise sent me an audio message. "I should have told you sooner. This group has been around for a while. I left because I couldn't take the jokes that, and my mother?" I asked. "She hardly speaks. She only uses emojis. I think it's easier for her to pretend she doesn't see." On the other end of the line, the sound of her breathing was heavy. "Are you going to tell them?" "No. Not yet, so what are you going to do?" "Show." The sentence came out of me before I could think. It was simple and definitive. I closed my laptop, but the brightness of the screen lingered on my retina. I went out onto the balcony. The night air smelled of ancient rain. Below, the lights of buildings flickered in windows where families dined, laughed, and waited for someone. I thought about how their love always had a password, and I never knew the code. As the wind lifted my hair, an idea began to take shape. It wasn't revenge yet, it was structure. The same thinking I used to resolve corporate crises. Data, evidence, narrative. The difference was that this time, the report would be about me. I took out my cell phone, recorded a short audio, firm voice. "Grandma, can I take care of your party video? I want to make something beautiful with a story," she replied minutes later, laughing as always. "Of course, my granddaughter. But do it your way. Trust you." I stared at the ceiling of the room as her voice echoed, "Do it your way." Maybe no one knew, but this was exactly what I had been waiting to hear all my life. I turned off the lights. I left only the laptop screen open, showing the folder inventory of silences. The cursor blinked like a patient heart. Each beat was a promise. It wasn't time to speak yet. But the video. The video had already begun to be written. On Sunday morning, I woke before my alarm. The sky was still gray, the smell of old rain and coffee wafting from the neighboring houses. I lay there for a while, listening to the distant sound of cars, the insistent barking of the dog from the building next door. It was a kind of silence that seemed to call for preparation. I got up slowly, washed my face, and sat at the table with my laptop open. The cursor blinked on the video file, asking for directions. I started by opening the box of old family photos, the ones Mom kept in yellowed paper envelopes, smelling of mustiness and cheap perfume. I spread them all out on the table. In the first portraits, time seemed docile. Birthdays, Christmases, trips. Everyone laughing. Grandma always in the center. My brother and sister-in-law pressed close together. And me. Sometimes a sliver of an arm, a reflection in glass, a shadow in the corner. In several photos, my presence was almost accidental, as if I'd been invited in just to balance the framing. I grabbed a photo from the last Christmas before the pandemic. My sister-in-law was in the center, holding the gift I'd bought myself, with a practiced smile of someone who knows the photo is hers. Behind her, her brother and mother exchanged glances. I was out of focus, pouring glasses. The caption, posted by her on Instagram, "A united family is a gift from God." No tag of my name. No trace of my existence there. I jotted down what I saw like a forensic scientist at a domestic crime scene. Christmas 2019, shadow. Easter 2020, cut off. Mother's birthday 2021, absent. Grandmother's Party 2022, uninvited. Each absence was a line of evidence. Suddenly, the sound of a message broke the silence. It was a group message. The brother's voice, its usual confident tone. Guys, for Grandma's party, I want it light. No drama, okay? I'll ask Clara to take care of the technical side of the video, because she's the expert, but someone will review it later so it doesn't get too heavy. Laughter in the background, the sister-in-law's voice. That's it, love. Leave the artistic part to me. Otherwise she'll turn it all into a sad documentary. Their laughter mingled together like scratched glass. I played the audio again just to confirm it was real. It was. And I saved it. I named the file, Lightness.mp3. I continued rummaging through the photos. I found a separate envelope, with my grandmother's name written in shaky handwriting. Inside were old letters, notes, and a faded photo of her as a young woman, holding her first child, my father. My stomach tightened. He died too soon, and since then, the house has rearranged itself without the axis that understood me. He always said, "Don't lower your head, daughter. Anyone who doesn't see you will stumble over you." I sealed the envelope and took a deep breath. I understood what I would do with the video. It wouldn't be dirty revenge. It would be a mirror too clean to ignore. Called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "Daughter, did you get your grandmother's photos?" "I did. But I wanted to know, has your brother sent you the event itinerary yet?" "Yes, he did. There will be a moment of thanks from him before the video. He said it will be beautiful." "Beautiful," I repeated, letting the weight of the word fall to the floor between us. "Daughter," she hesitated. "I know you're different, but don't turn this into a fight." "No, mother. In a fight, no. In truth." She sighed, and I could hear the television in the background, the sound of an old soap opera. "Just do something nice, okay? Your grandmother deserves it. I'll do it, Mom." My way. I hung up and stared at the reflection in the window. The sky was darkening even without rain. The wind stirred the curtains as if testing the limits of the house. I returned to my laptop and began assembling the video skeleton. I opened a timeline and divided it into sections. Childhood, children, parties, silences. For each section I selected images and audio. The background music started softly, a light piano, and gradually faded into rain. In between, I included short, simple captions. "Whoever is remembered appears." Then a sequence of photos where I was cut out. I stopped for a moment and closed my eyes. I listened to the sound of the street, the sound of the wind hitting the windows. Everything seemed complicit. The whole city seemed to understand what I was about to do. Before turning off the computer, I received another message, this time from my cousin Denise. "Grandma is excited about the party. She said she wants a video that tells the family's truth." The truth. That word pierced me like a knife and a relief at the same time. Maybe she didn't know it, but she had already given me the permission I needed. I saved the project with the name, Memorial Under 80, and inside it, an identical copy, Memorial Under 80 Incomplete. Just one extra word, but it contained everything that had always been left out. Closed my laptop. The reflection of the blank screen showed my face divided between shadow and light. And there, in that digital mirror, I realized. The dark part was no longer fear, it was strategy. Monday began with a dry heat and one of those silences that herald change. The sky was too clear, the kind of day when even the air seems to be watching. I opened the windows and let the wind in. The computer was still on the desk, with the video file open on the screen. The cursor blinked at the exact spot where I'd left off, right after the subtitles. "Whoever is remembered appears." That was where the next part would begin. I made coffee, sat down in front of the screen, and opened another tab. New spreadsheet, title at the top, Presences and Absences. On one side, I wrote down every time my family needed me. On the other, every time they pretended I didn't exist. The left column grew quickly. Payments for tests, loans, repairs, rides, late nights spent at the hospital with my mother. The right, quieter, looked like an inverted mirror. Parties, barbecues, birthdays, weddings. The lines multiplied until the contrast became stark. It was curious to see how the same people who said, "You're so independent," also knew exactly who to ask for help. Praising independence was always an excuse for absence. I was useful but never welcome. Strong but never loved. I left the spreadsheet open and looked around. The house was clean, but it carried an old weariness. Folded towels, photos on the shelves, souvenirs that never included me. I picked up the picture frame from last Christmas, turned it upside down, and with a pen wrote on the back, "That is also a given." My cell phone vibrated. A message from my sister-in-law, her voice sweet and measured. "Hi, Clarinia. I was watching the video, it's turning out great, you know? Just try to make the soundtrack more cheerful, okay? We want good emotion, not drama. Grandma will cry if it gets too serious." I read and reread, feeling the hidden tone beneath the words. Cheerful. As if my story were an inconvenient burden on the family narrative. I replied shortly, "I'll leave it at that." I returned to the project. The score now began with piano and ended with rain. It sounded less than cheerful. Exactly as it should have. At noon my mother called. "Daughter, your aunt asked if you were coming for Sunday lunch." "I don't think so, Mom. She said she misses you, that you've been distant." "Far from what, Mother?" She hesitated. "Of all this, of the family distanced themselves first. I just stopped chasing after them." Silence. The kind of silence that can't be fixed with amen, or God knows what he's doing. The kind that weighs heavily. After I hung up, I thought about how their love had always been scripted. A strong, discreet, grateful black woman. The role they'd given me was one of silence. And I'd played it so well that they'd assumed it was natural. Only now, the silence had begun to register. I opened the file again. Lightness. 3. I heard the part where my brother said, "She sees racism in everything." I noticed the intonation. He laughed, but it carried the same tone I've heard so many times in work meetings, when I'm called intense for disagreeing or difficult for not laughing at a joke. That phrase was the link between what I experienced outside and what I experienced inside. Racism in the family always came disguised as habit. I began editing the next sequence of the video. Parties, laughter, a full table, and between the images, discrete absences. In the caption I wrote, "Those who laugh together should fit in the photo." When the scene ended, I noticed my hands shaking. It wasn't anger. It was my body telling me that the weight of truth is physical. I got up, went to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and looked out the window. The street was teeming with light. Outside, a group of children chased a ball, shouting, "Play it to me." The phrase echoed. Playing for someone is acknowledging that the other exists. At home, no one ever passed me the ball. I sat back down, closed the video, and opened a YouTube tab. I searched for stories of invisibility. Among the results, I found testimonies from other black women talking about exclusion within their own families. I stood there listening, my face still and my heart pounding. Each word seemed to convey what I had never been able to say. It was then that a simple, almost childish thought came to me. What if the video wasn't just for them? What if it was for all of us? I took out my cell phone and recorded a short audio, my voice low but firm. There are people who think that love is light because they have never had to carry it alone. I listened to the audio itself and smiled. It was the exact line. Copied it into the script. The sun was already starting to set when I opened a new tab in the project and wrote the title. Part 4, The Things They Don't Say. With each click, the sound of the keyboard seemed clearer, more rhythmic, as if each keystroke were a step. I no longer saw myself simply as a wounded woman. I began to see myself as an author. And as the day ended and the sky turned orange, I realized there was no pain that could not be transformed into structure. The difference is that, this time the structure was mine. On Tuesday morning, the air was stuffy, heavy, as if the weather knew something was about to change. I woke before the sun, my head buzzing with ideas. I made a strong coffee and sat down at the computer. The file Memorial Incomplete was there, blinking on my desktop like an invitation. Opened it. The first part was already ready. Childhood, youth, laughter, the family's perfect facade. All that was missing was the seam, the turning point. I started reviewing the audio files. One of them, La Visa d'MP3, sounded like polite venom. My brother's laughter seemed louder with each listen. Pause. Took a breath. I opened the editing app and dragged the file to the middle of the timeline, right after the sequence of happy photos. I added the sound of light rain, gradually building. The transition was almost imperceptible, but the contrast was brutal, their laughter sinking under the weight of the water. Then I opened the folder inventory of silences. Each file had a name I'd given myself, with the precision of someone who files crimes. Natal 2019 under Sombra.jpg. Pascoa 2020 under .jpg. PDF. I organized everything chronologically. As the images began to line up on the screen, I realized the video was no longer a record but a diagnosis. It was a clinical portrait of omission. With each cut, the story gained momentum. I posted a quick sequence of screenshots from the drama-free family group, the laughing emojis, the phrases "she's too intense," "you're seeing a problem where there isn't one," "it's the hair." The messages flashed across the screen, fast, without narration, just the sound of breathing I'd recorded minutes earlier, the sound of someone trying to hold back tears. Halfway through editing, a notification popped up on my phone. A message from my mom. "Daughter, your brother asked you to send him the video tomorrow for review, okay?" I laughed silently. Review. The word seemed absurd to me. I replied, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll send you the correct version." I returned to the canvas. I grabbed a notepad and began sketching the final structure. I wrote by hand. Childhood, grandmother, faith, union. Growth. Children, achievements, celebrations. Silence. Absences, exclusions, jokes. Truth. Prints, audio, rain. Reflection, the final question. I spent the entire morning stitching the images together. When the clock struck 11:30, I closed my eyes and pressed play. The room was plunged into a mix of the past and the sound of rain. The photos followed one another, the faces illuminated, the laughter perfect. And then, slowly, the sound changed. The laughter faded, the gazes froze. The photos began to show empty spaces, excessive chairs, ownerless shadows, my absence framed. In the end, the screen went black. Only one sentence appeared, white, calm. "Those who are remembered appear. Those who are forgotten also appear." I let the sentence linger for a few seconds and then cut the sound off abruptly. The silence afterward was almost physical. I closed my laptop and went to the window. The sun was already high, the heat streaming in through the crack. On the sidewalk, a neighbor was watering her plants with a thin hose, the sound of the water mixing with the birdsong. I thought of the irony. Everyone thinks it's beautiful when it rains outside, but no one can stand it when it starts inside. In the afternoon, I went to my mother's house. The door was open, and the smell of cake and disinfectant wafted through. She was in the kitchen, stirring the coffee. "I came to get some photos of my grandmother. They're in the living room drawer. And, honey," she hesitated, "try not to overdo it, okay? We want a light party." He smiled from the corner of his mouth. "Don't worry, Mom. It'll be easy." I took the photos, thanked her, and left. At the gate, I found my grandmother sitting on the porch, wearing the blue dress she wore on Sundays. "Are you already preparing the tribute?" he asked, smiling. "Yes, I am, Grandma. Then promise me one thing, show me everything. Not just the pretty stuff. We already know the pretty stuff." Her sentence pierced me like a knife and a hug at the same time. I returned home with my head clear. As soon as I got home, I opened my computer and added a new layer to the video. My grandmother's voice. I took an old audio clip of hers. "We need to pick up those who arrive tired." And layered it over the airport footage, the screenshot of the use Uber message, and the sound of the car engine. The blend was perfect. When I finished, I stared at the final result. The video was 32 minutes long, but it felt like a lifetime. A portrait of how love can be selective and how racism disguises itself as habit. I made 2 copies. One on the gold flash drive I'd leave for my brother, titled Memorial Under Ian Final. the other identical on the black flash drive. Memorial and complete. Only I would know the difference. I saved everything and turned off the computer. The sky began to darken early. I opened the window, and the warm wind carried the smell of wet earth. The world outside seemed to move slowly, as if waiting for the next scene. And as I sat in front of the blank screen, I realized the plan wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. About letting the silence say what I'd always whispered, and what they never wanted to hear. On Wednesday, I woke up feeling light-hearted and alert, as if I'd fallen asleep with a decision in mind. The sun streamed through the cracks in the curtains, streaking the living room floor. The computer was still on the table, and the black flash drive beside it seemed to be watching me. It was time to finalize everything. I made coffee, sat down, and opened the video one last time. I wanted every second to carry the exact weight of what I'd experienced. I watched it from the beginning. The childhood, the laughter, the rehearsed hugs. Then, the sound of the rain gently coming in, the screenshots, the audio from my brother. Everything was in its right place. Only one detail was missing, the stamp. The irrefutable proof of what they pretended not to see. I grabbed my phone and opened the family group's message history. I scrolled to the day of my flight. The messages were there intact, me. My flight arrives at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? Him. Use Uber. We're not your driver. Sister-in-law. She's so independent, leave her alone. Mother. Take care, daughter. I made a video of the screen, showing the messages in sequence, with the time visible in the corner. I zoomed in on the details. 5:01 p.m. my message. 5:03 p.m. the response. Exactly 2 minutes between the request and the rejection. I saved the file with the name Karimbo under 17h03.mov and dragged it to the end of the edition, before the phrase, "Those who are remembered appear. Those who are forgotten also." When the render finished, I watched it again, unblinking. The scene had gained a quiet power, a kind of justice that didn't need a shout. The sound of my cell phone broke my concentration. It was a new message from my mother. "Daughter, your brother asked to see the video today. He wants to put his name in the credits. He said he came up with the idea for the tribute first." Chuckled. "It was predictable, it's okay, Mom. He'll show up." I replied. I opened the program and inserted, at the beginning of the official video, the phrase, "Production, family together." But in the full version I just wrote, "Production, who has never been sought." As I exported, I felt something curious, a kind of steady, almost scientific serenity. As if, suddenly, all the pain had become method. Later, I received a call from my cousin Denise. "Are you ready for the big day?" Almost at, "Are you really going to show everything? Only what they hid?" She was silent for a moment. "Do you think they will understand?" "It doesn't matter," I replied. "The important thing is that they see." I hung up and stared at the black flash drive on the table. It felt heavier than it should have. A small object containing years of swallowed words. As the sun began to set, I decided to go outside for a bit. I walked around the neighborhood, observing the people on the sidewalks, the smell of bread wafting from the bakeries, the sound of gates closing. Life seemed normal, and perhaps that was the secret, hiding the cracks beneath the everyday. The family had always been masters at this, turning exclusion into habit, racism into a playful way. I stopped at a stand and bought a white candle. When I got home, I lit it on the table. Not out of religion, but out of ritual. As the flame flickered, I put on my headphones and heard my grandmother's voice again, recorded on the old audio. "We need to pick up those who arrive tired." Closed my eyes. Her voice pierced me completely. That was the final piece of the puzzle. I opened the editor and overlaid the grandmother's audio at the end of the video. The rain subsided, her sound entered, and then her voice, soft, firm, genuine. The kind of sentence that needs no explanation. When I was done, I saved both versions in different folders. Official Party Golden Pen Drive. Party Intercomplete Black Flash Drive. I put them both inside the bag side by side. One to keep up appearances. The other to knock them down. Before bed, I went to the balcony. The sky was clear, cloudless. The city lights seemed sharper. I thought about the ballroom, the golden tablecloths, the usual laughter, the giant screen waiting for the right file. His brother would speak first, as always. Microphone in hand, the confident tone of someone who had never been interrupted. And then, when the screen lit up, he would hear his own voice echoing in a room that, for once, wouldn't applaud him. I closed my eyes and imagined the entire scene. The sound of the rain, the enlarged print, the final sentence. All in absolute silence. A silence that, for the first time, wouldn't erase me. It would make me visible. I blew out the candle. The flame went out with a small pop, but the scent remained. A scent of something new, of something about to be born. I lay down with the serene certainty of someone who's already written the ending. The rest was just waiting for the moment to press play. Saturday arrived with a kind of heat that seems to warn that nothing will remain hidden. I woke early, earlier than I needed to. I opened the curtains and saw the sky white, still, as if time were on pause. The day of the party. The day everyone would gather to celebrate the 80th birthday of a woman who had always been the center, and who, unbeknownst to her, would also be the mirror. I spent the morning in silence. I put on a simple dark blue dress, the same shade as Grandma's eyes. I left my hair natural, unhurried, as if I understood there was nothing more dignified than one's own form. I grabbed my bag and checked its contents, the gold flash drive and the black one. One for the public, the other for the truth. The party hall was in an old neighborhood, one of those with mansions converted into event venues. When I arrived, the gate was open, and the buzz inside was already audible. Familiar laughter, loud voices, background music playing, trying to sound happy. I entered slowly. The decor was all gold and white, with artificial flowers and photos of my grandmother scattered across the walls. There was even a panel with the phrase in cursive, "Family, where life begins and love never ends." I laughed to myself. Almost everything on that wall was true, except the sentence. Mom saw me first. "It's here, daughter," she said, relieved, as if my presence were a risk she feared wouldn't materialize. We hugged quickly, a gesture more formal than affectionate. "Is the video ready?" she asked, done. I replied with a small smile. The brother approached, microphone in hand, impeccable white shirt, the kind of man who seems to have been born prepared to be the center of attention. "Hey, little sister," he said, hugging me lightly without touching his face. "I'm counting on you, okay? No drama, okay? It's supposed to be light." I looked at him and saw the reflection of the screen behind him, off, waiting. "Leave it to me. Take it as always." As he walked back to the stage, his sister-in-law came up to me, smelling of overly sweet perfume. "You sit over there, okay?" He pointed. "Near the exit, to coordinate the sound. It'll be easier that way." Thanked them. The seat was secluded, far from the main table, where they sat, their children, their nephews, and the photos I had arranged myself. I sat down, discreetly opened my laptop, and plugged in the black flash drive. The sound technician came over. "Which file do I release?" "The one labeled Final," I replied. He nodded unsuspectingly. As people arrived, I took in the details. The gold napkins folded like flowers, the faux crystal glasses, the central screen waiting to light up. My brother walked from table to table, greeting guests. He was good at this, acting belonging. My grandmother, seated in the center, wore a pale blue dress and an antique necklace that gleamed in the warm light. When she saw me, she waved warmly, smiled back. I looked around. The main table had 10 seats, all with nameplates. Brother, sister-in-law, children, mother, aunts and uncles. My name wasn't there. Instead, I saw a sign that said, Technical/Organization. I found it poetic, in a cruel way. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of the table, the room, and the lights. I sent it to myself with the caption, "Before the sound." The brother went on stage, tested the microphone, and announced the beginning of the night. "Guys, today is a day to celebrate," he said, with that wide smile that never reached his eyes. 80 years of the woman who taught us everything about love and unity. Applause, whistles. He continued. And to share this beautiful story, my sister made a moving video. But I promised her it would be light-hearted, okay? Laughter from the audience. So Clara let it out. The room darkened. The clinking of glasses stopped. The lights focused on the screen. For a moment, I heard only my own breathing. And then the sound of rain. The video began with old photos of my grandmother, her childhood, her marriage, her children growing up. The soft soundtrack, the piano. People sighed, pointed, smiled. Everything seemed normal. But I knew what was coming next. Among the discrete images, photos where I was cropped began to appear. Then came the group messages, the enlarged screenshot of use Uber. The rain in the background grew heavier. Their laughter froze in the air. I looked around. My brother was still smiling, unaware. My sister-in-law, tense, fidgeted with her napkin. My mother, motionless, eyes glued to the screen. My grandmother, attentive, with the look of someone who understands before anyone else. At the table in front, someone whispered, "Was that in the video?" And another answered, "I don't think that was the version they agreed on." The captions appeared slowly, white on a black background. Whoever is remembered appears. Whoever is forgotten is also forgotten. In the bottom corner of the screen, the stamp. 5:03 p.m., the time of the message. The room fell into a silence so thick you could hear the air conditioning. I kept my gaze steady, my hands resting in my lap. Inside, my heart beat like a muffled drum. And then, when the video stopped for a few seconds, the grandmother's voice echoed, soft and unmistakable. "We need to pick up those who arrive tired." That sentence filled the room like a wind. The sister-in-law clapped her hand over her mouth. The brother lowered his gaze. The mother let out a sob. The video ended in a black screen. No sound. No credits. Just a point of light reflected in everyone's eyes. I stood there, motionless, savoring the moment, the kind of silence that doesn't erase, it reveals. And it was at that moment, between the end of the video and the audience's first gasp, that I realized. I didn't need to say anything. I had already said it all. For a few seconds after the video ended, no one moved. The entire room seemed suspended, as if time had forgotten to move on. The lights were still off, and the reflection from the screen left everyone's faces pale, almost motionless. The air was charged, thick as after a thunderclap. The first voice to break the silence was the grandmother's. "What a beautiful video, my daughter," he said. His tone calm but full of intention. "They finally showed everything." She smiled, and that simple smile was enough to make the room breathe again. But not like before. Now, every breath was accompanied by discomfort. The brother stood frozen, the microphone still in his hand. His sister-in-law looked at him, seeking some instruction. His mother, instead of standing, remained seated, her eyes lowered, one hand trembling in her lap. The audience, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, exchanged discreet glances, trying to decipher whether this was part of the tribute or if they had just witnessed something they would never forget. That wasn't what we agreed on," the brother finally murmured. His voice cracked at the end, like a broken string. I got up slowly, walked to the stage and asked for the microphone with a calm gesture. "It was the right thing to do," I replied. "The agreement was always silence. Today I just changed the soundtrack." Some guests laughed nervously, others lowered their gazes. The grandmother in the center clapped slowly, once, twice, 3 times, until a few more people joined in. The applause was timid, but sufficient. The brother tried to regain control of the scene. "Guys, let's remember that today is a celebration, okay? I think there's been a misunderstanding here." But his grandmother interrupted him without raising her voice. "There was no misunderstanding, my son. I've been waiting for 80 years to see someone courageously show the truth." The entire room fell silent again. The brother looked away, his face hard. The sister-in-law tried to smile, but her laughter found no place. Meanwhile, Mom stood up. Her eyes filled with tears. She came to me hesitantly. "Daughter, why did you do this?" I looked at her without anger, without haste, Because I'm tired of waiting for a ride to a place where I was never invited to sit. She lowered her gaze. The words seemed too heavy to answer. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, Mom, I interrupted. But doing nothing hurts too. A murmur passed through the room, like a wind of astonishment. Grandmother struggled to her feet, came over to me, and took my hand. You did what needed to be done, my granddaughter, he said. Now they'll understand that love without respect is just a picture hanging on the wall. The applause returned, louder this time, coming from other tables. An aunt wept softly. A cousin filmed the moment with his cell phone. The brother, visibly irritated, left the stage and went straight to his table. His sister-in-law followed him, whispering something that didn't reach me. Grandma shook my hand and added, I always knew you were different, and I thank God for that. I felt a lump in my throat, but I didn't cry. Crying would have diminished the moment. Instead, I kissed her hand and helped her back to her seat. The room remained in a murmur, divided between amazement and admiration. I simply took a deep breath and walked to the side table, where the laptop was still open. The screen displayed the file paused in the last image. The screenshot of the message, use Uber. With a click, I turned off the video. The screen went dark. The room was plunged into dim light, just enough for everyone to see my calm expression. Now we can continue the party, he said. But at least this time, she started with the truth. I returned to my seat, feeling the gaze of dozens of people following me. I sat and remained silent, observing the slow movements around me. The waiter collecting glasses, the cousin pretending to check his phone, the mother still motionless. At the corner of the table, the brother took a hurried sip of wine, trying to hide his anger. His sister-in-law, pale, fidgeted with her napkin. But Grandma's gaze remained fixed on me, and there was something I hadn't seen in a long time, pride. It was in that instant that I realized. Revenge wasn't the exposure. It was the echo. The fact that, from then on, every joke, every exclusion, every sideways glance would be remembered with the sound of that phrase. We need to look for those who arrive tired. And the best part is that it would no longer sound like advice. It would sound like a sentence. I took a deep breath and, on a calm impulse, grabbed my phone. I recorded a short video, showing the room, the lights, the still stunned people, and I whispered, without looking at the camera, when silence speaks, no one pretends they didn't hear. I sent the video to my cousin Denise with a single caption. Share. The rest, I knew, was no longer in my hands. The news spread faster than any video could. By Sunday, the drama-free family group was in flames. Perfect irony. Deleted messages, veiled accusations, awkward silences. Someone, probably a cousin, had filmed the moment on the big screen and posted it on Facebook with a caption. The tribute became a confession. Within hours, hundreds of comments, shares, likes, and reactions poured in. Some called it courage. Others revenge. I woke up to my phone vibrating non-stop. Missed calls from my mother, my sister-in-law, from numbers I didn't even recognize. I got up, made coffee, and let the phone ring. There was nothing that needed to be said. Everything had already been said. The truth, once revealed, no longer fits within the same silence. I sat at the table and opened my laptop. The video, Memorial Audience Complete, was also saved in the cloud, set to upload automatically. And there it was, with over 50,000 views in less than a day. Comments from strangers, women who said they recognized themselves, people thanking me for revealing what so many families hide under the rug of cordiality. You are not alone. That happened to me too. Thank you for naming the exclusion. Each comment was like an arm reaching out to me in the dark. For the first time, my pain wasn't private. It was collective, understood. At 10, my mother's phone rang again. Answered. Her voice was shaky. Daughter. What you did is on the internet. No. Why? Because hiding is what got us here. Your brother is furious. He said you destroyed the family's image. I didn't destroy anything, Mom. I just showed what was already cracked. Silence. People are talking. She whispered, let them talk. For the first time, they're talking about what's real. The mother sighed, overcome by a mixture of shame and relief that only those who lived between the two of them could understand. Your grandmother is proud. She said she's never felt so seen. I smiled even without strength, so it was worth it. I hung up and stared at the reflection on the screen. I saw my face with deep dark circles, but there was something new there. A lightness that came not from forgiveness, but from liberation. I opened my browser and saw the video being shared on activist websites, Black women's profiles, and blogs about family racism. Each repost carried the same caption: the woman who showed what it's like to be forgotten in her own home. I received a message from my cousin Denise. Are you ready to deal with the noise? I've dealt with silence, cousin. Noise is easy. The notification sound wouldn't stop. Amidst all the noise, a new message from Grandma appeared. A short audio message. My granddaughter, I saw people talking, but know that courage is what separates those who live from those who merely exist. And I raised you to live. I closed my eyes, letting the sound of her voice wash over me. It was the kind of blessing you don't ask for. You inherit. That afternoon, the brother finally broke the silence. He posted a note in the group, feigning calm. Family is a place of forgiveness. Some mistakes happen when emotions speak louder. I read the message and left it without a response. Just below, the grandmother replied. Some mistakes happen when silence lasts too long. Her message received dozens of hearts. No one dared delete it. The sun began to set, tinging the room with gold. I glanced at the black flash drive on the table and realized it had served its purpose. I opened the window and let the wind blow. The rustling of the leaves was soft, almost a subdued applause. I grabbed my phone and opened the video app. I recorded a short statement, the camera in the foreground, no makeup, no filter. Sometimes what we call family is just a foggy mirror, he said, pausing for a moment. But when we wipe it clean, the reflection is frightening. Because it shows us who was never there. Posted it. And within minutes, hundreds of comments began to appear. Stories, confessions, outbursts. Black women, mothers, daughters, granddaughters. Each with their own version of the same wound. That's when I felt the true meaning of moral revenge. It wasn't about exposing the other, it was about breaking the cycle. Transforming pain into echo, silence into speech, exclusion into belonging. The sun had already set when Denise's message arrived. Women are sharing your video. You've become a symbol. I replied with a calm that seemed ancient. I don't want to be a symbol. I don't want any of us to have to scream to be remembered anymore. I put my phone aside, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. The world hurt, yes, but now it hurt differently, it hurt cleanly. And there, in that simple room, surrounded by the noise of a bustling city, I realized. My story hadn't been a scandal. It had been a mirror. And the reflection finally was mine. On Monday, the city seemed quieter. Or maybe it was just me who felt different. I woke up late, without an alarm clock, my body light, my heart tired but steady. On my phone, the video continued to grow. Hundreds of thousands of views. The number no longer impressed me. What touched me were the messages. Women who called me sister. Teenagers who said they recognized their own mothers in my story. Women who confessed to having kept quiet for decades. Each notification felt like a fragment of something larger. A slowly building chorus, coming from places I never imagined reaching. It was strange to think that the pain that once isolated me now united so many people. I got up, made coffee, and watched the steam rise from the cup. There was a different peace in that gesture. For the first time, the silence of the house wasn't oppressive. It was space. The sound of the fan, the smell of coffee, the gentle clink of the spoon in the cup. It all seemed part of a new breath. I opened my laptop. Among the messages, one caught my attention. I'm a teacher. I showed your video to my class about empathy and family racism. They were silent, but it was a respectful silence. Thank you. I stared at that sentence. Silence of respect. How different it was from the silence of exclusion. One was silent to erase. The other to listen. At 11 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. It was my mother. Daughter, can I see you today? he asked, in a voice I hadn't heard in years, gentle without defense. "He can, and I'll stop by after lunch." My heart sank. When I hung up, the house seemed to breathe along with me. She arrived at 2, dressed simply, her hair tied back, her eyes weary. She brought a still warm cake, smelling of childhood and trying. "I made it with cornmeal. It was what you liked best." He set his plate down and stood, unsure where to place his hands. I watched her silently, and for a moment I saw not the mother who had hurt me, but the woman who had also been silenced before me. "I didn't know it hurt so much," she said, lowering her eyes. "For me, it was all just a way of playing." "I know," I replied. "Racism sometimes uses our voices without us even realizing it." She cried silently, and I let her. When she finally looked up, there was a plea for forgiveness that didn't need to be spoken. "Your grandmother talked a lot about you these days. She said courage runs in our blood." He paused. "I wanted to thank you for showing us what we pretended not to see." I felt the lump in my throat loosen. "I just showed what already existed, Mom." She smiled, sad and proud at the same time. "And now? What are you going to do?" "Continue living, but with your hands free." We drank coffee together in silence, the kind of silence that heals. Later, she walked away slowly, looking back before leaving. I closed the door and sat back down. I grabbed my phone and opened my social media. The video had been shared by a well-known journalist. The post's title: "When love needs proof, it's time to show the mirror." The comments were multiplying. But now, among the reports of pain, there were also promises of change. "I talked to my daughter today. I apologized to my sister. I showed the video at Sunday dinner." That made me smile. Revenge, after all, had become a seed. At night, I received a message from my grandmother. "I saw your mother today." She cried, but with relief. She said she's learning to see. Reply: "That's all I wanted, Grandma. For them to see." I went to bed early. The open window let in a cool breeze and the distant sound of a television playing in a neighboring apartment. I thought about everything that had happened. The airport, the group, the video, the party. Every detail felt like part of a journey that began with a simple message, a ride request, and ended with something much greater, the rescue of a voice. I closed my eyes and realized there was no more anger, only clarity. Sometimes justice comes not in the form of punishment, but of conscience. And conscience, when it arrives, doesn't restore what was lost, but it prevents further loss. I took a deep breath, feeling my body light, my heart at peace. I thought of the women who had written to me, of those who would still write. In each of them was a version of me that had finally been seen. And there, in the serene darkness of the room, I realized it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about inheritance. The legacy of those who learned to transform silence into words, and pain into a mirror. On Tuesday, the sun rose clear, filtering through the gaps in the curtains and painting the room with golden streaks. The city was waking up outside, and for the first time in a long time I woke up whole. I felt like someone who survived a fire and yet can still breathe deeply. The air is hot, but it's freedom. Got up slowly. I made coffee, opened the windows, and let the wind in. The street sounds were familiar, horns, footsteps, a vendor's call, but now they seemed like a symphony. Every mundane noise reminded me that the world was moving on, and so was I. The phone vibrated on the table, notifications blaring endlessly. The video had surpassed 1 million views. News portals commented on the incident, universities requested permission to show it in classes, and black women from various countries sent messages in different languages, but with the same sentiment. "Thank you for saying what I experienced and couldn't say." I responded to a few, but kept most of them in my heart. Sometimes silence is the best way to express gratitude. Among the messages, one caught my attention. It was from my cousin Denise. "Your mother called me yesterday. She said you two talk. She's different, you know." "I know," I replied. "We only change when we see ourselves in the mirror." "You achieved what no one else could, Clara. I didn't want destruction, Denise. Only truth." I closed the app and stared out the window at the horizon. The city shimmered in the mid-morning heat. Below, a couple argued quietly, a child laughed, and a woman pushed a shopping cart laden with flowers. Everything was the same, but inside me everything was different. I decided to leave. I walked aimlessly, just listening to the sound of my footsteps. I passed the newsstand, and a headline stopped me. The woman who turned family racism into a lesson in humanity. Smiled. Not at the title, but at the recognition that, for once, the narrative hadn't been stolen. Later I went to visit my grandmother. She was sitting on the porch, wearing the same blue dress, the same necklace. When she saw me, she gave me a calm smile, the kind that doesn't need words. "My brave granddaughter," he said. "I saw you on television. You always said that the truth comes out, right? It appears. But only when someone has the courage to turn on the light." I sat down next to her. We sat in silence, listening to the wind rustle the mango leaves. "You know what's beautiful about all this," she continued, "is that now, when they look at you, they'll see themselves. And that changes everything." Her words fell softly but firmly like a prayer. I hugged her and breathed in the sweet scent of coconut soap and time gone by. Before she left, she held my hand. "The video will air, Clara. But what you did will remain. Not just on the internet, but in the souls of those who needed to see it to understand." I returned home late in the afternoon, the sky burning orange. I sat at my desk and turned on my computer. I wrote the title of a new document, "Letters to Those Who Thought I Wouldn't See It." The words came easily now, not as a rant but as a legacy. Each sentence seemed to clear the way, to make room for other voices. I no longer wrote to defend myself. I wrote to multiply. As I typed, an idea struck me like a bolt of lightning. What if I created a space where Black women could tell their stories without fear? A place where silence wasn't the rule, but a choice. I opened a new tab and registered the domain, www.quemalembraviv.org. Mail. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and stared at the moonlight reflecting off the window. I thought about the now empty messaging group and the new life that was beginning outside of it. I thought about the girl waiting at the airport and the woman now writing about her own arrival. I took out my cell phone, opened the recorder and let my voice flow, calm, without rehearsal. Sometimes justice doesn't happen in court or through revenge. It happens when someone finally chooses to see themselves. I saw myself. And that's enough. I saved the audio and renamed it Arrival 3. I was silent for a few seconds, feeling the sound of my own heart. Then I looked straight out the window and whispered, as if speaking for time to hear, "May we all learn to look for those who arrive tired. And if no one comes, may we learn to look for ourselves." I took a deep breath, smiled, and with the serenity of someone who no longer expects a ride, I turned off my cell phone. If this story touched you, subscribe, share, comment, spread the word. Because when one Black woman is heard, all others gain a voice.